The Phantom Menace opens at midnight.
Place in the Star Wars line.
People started lining up over a month ago.
All right, get out your lightsabers.
You just may have noticed that Star Wars, the latest episode, opens nationally at midnight tonight.
The hype surrounding this movie has been overwhelming. Now the question is, will it deliver?
They're about to open the doors here in just a few minutes, and people are revved
Some
up.
2.2 million Americans from New York to
Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace celebrates its 25th anniversary this year, which is crazy to think it's been 25 years since the beginning of the prequel trilogy, and I thought it would be a lot of fun to take some time and go through the history of Star Wars merchandise, along with focusing on some of the weirder pieces of merchandise that have come over the years. So let's jump back and take a look at the beginning of this entire franchise and make our way towards the modern day of Star Wars merchandise. Initially, Fox and Lucasfilm offered the license to Mego, but Mego actually passed on the deal, saying that they were unimpressed with the film. Lucasfilm went around and shopped the license to a bunch of different other toy makers, but it did eventually land in the laps of Kenner. Kenner at the time was owned by General Mills. Then president of Kenner, Bernie Loomis, thought it would be a great opportunity, especially in the relatively unused market of 3 3/4 figures, which were significantly cheaper to produce. But even Loomis thought that Star Wars would just become another passing fad. When Star Wars was fully released and became a pop culture phenomenon, Kenner was jumping to get items out onto the shelves. Bernie Loomis said, "Here we were, with an extraordinary demand and no product to fill it with. The normal period from design to production of a properly designed, engineered, tooled, and finally in production toy line is 18 months to 2 years. They just had a few different products that had the Star Wars sticker thrown on there, some of them even being products that were previously released with just new paint or stickers put on them. Kenner was jumping to figure out how to get Star Wars action figures on the shelves quickly and in the hands of customers. Thus was born the Star Wars Early Bird Certificate Set. For Christmas of 1977, Kenner released cardboard packaging, promising that if you bought that piece of cardboard, those figures will be mailed to you the following year. While it may seem like a weird proposition today, the promotion was a massive success for Kenner. Bernie Loomis said, "We limited sales to 500,000 units, and the 1.5 million figures in the gift certificate program led to a sale of 40 million figures in the following year." Star Wars' power just continued to grow throughout the time of the original trilogy, from Empire Strikes Back in 1980, all the way through Return of the Jedi being released in 1983. During the time of the original trilogy, we had C-3PO tape dispensers, Burger King glasses, Dixie paper cups, bed sheets, a Marvel comic series, and much, much more. But after the original trilogy had fully ended, the world of Star Wars merchandise started to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that was before the dark times. Before the Bendums. Howard Ruffman, the former vice president of licensing at Lucasfilm, said, "When I moved to licensing in 1986, Star Wars merchandise was at a virtual standstill. It wasn't until 4 years later in 1990 when the original trilogy would finally be packaged together in a VHS set that the interest of Star Wars continued to grow again. By 1993, it had been 10 full years since a Star Wars action figure had been released, and that led to the Bendums. Brian Volk Weiss, the executive producer of the toys that made us, said, "The first new toy in about 10 years in 1993 with the Luke Skywalker and Star Wars Bendums, and they were garbage." But I bought them all because there hadn't been a Star Wars story in 10 years. It wasn't until 1995 when we got our first official return of the Star Wars action figures with the Power of the Force line. It brought back all of our favorite characters, except this time they had spent some time at the gym. The 1990s were filled with continual growth through the expanded universe and what is now called Legends in the Disney era. We had many books, toys, and even video games that continued to bring Star Wars back to the forefront of the public consciousness. This era was actually a big part of my introduction to the world of Star Wars through watching the original trilogy on that VHS set, playing the Shadow of the Empire or Rogue Squadron games on Nintendo 64, and also having all of these different toys as I was younger. By 1994, George Lucas had stated he is working on these brand new prequel movies. The special editions were released starting in 1997. Star Wars Mania was now gaining that full speed back to get us ready for the first of the prequel films. While all this other action is happening, deals are being made about the lead up to Star Wars Episode 1. Lucasfilm made a $650 million deal with Hasbro, who now owned Kenner, for the toy rights. Hasbro had to guarantee George Lucas $500 million in royalties just for the Phantom Menace in order to get that license back. Pepsi would spend $2 billion in order to sponsor the entire prequel trilogy, which is crazy considering the comparison of $700 million that was spent by the Coca-Cola Company for the 1996 Olympics. Even a deal with Tricon, who owned Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell, to have a united promotional theme with plastic cup toppers and toys that spread across the different restaurants. Calendars, stickers, Jar Jar Binks tongue lollipops. We had Queen Amidala makeup kits, watches, band-aids, toothbrushes, and even a blow-up Darth Maul chair that you could sit on that I actually had when I was a kid. Overall, there were 73 different licensors just for the Phantom Menace. Star Wars had now reached the heights that I don't think it has ever hit since, or at least not for a very long time after the release of the Phantom Menace. May 3rd, 1999 was the first official midnight release of the Phantom Menace merchandise. Shelves were stocked with tons of merchandise, from action figures, stationery, and anything else that you could imagine that had that Episode 1 items plastered on them. I personally remember the midnight releases for Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and thinking back on those are some of my most precious and fond memories when it comes to becoming a collector. By the end of things, Hasbro had made $500 million just on Episode 1, while Phantom Menace in total made $7 billion just in the year of 1999. Even with those numbers, the promotion was not seen as a success just due to the extreme number of investment that was put in on the front end. When it came time to get to Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Lucasfilm looked at those numbers and how many licensors they had, and they actually cut the amount of licensors by 30% and the amount of different types of products by over 50%. But even with that, that doesn't mean we didn't still get some really strange products in the age after Episode 1. We had an R2-D2 aquarium. How about Anakin and Darth Vader crazy hair fruit candy? And these here are in my collection. They expired in 2007, and I don't think I will be trying to see if they still taste good. Episode 3 sick bags that you can use on an airplane. Episode 1 3D glasses when the film was re-released in theaters. And don't forget the stuff that Disney wants you to forget. And maybe the things that we want to forget. We even have this really strange figure that Hasbro made of Luke from the final battle in Return of the Jedi, where he's attacking Darth Vader, and because of the action feature that they gave him, he has this really weird kind of stringy arms that flail back and forth with the action feature. It doesn't really convey, I think, the motion or action they were trying to get across. It just looks really, really strange, especially if you take the lightsaber out of his hand. When Disney purchased Lucasfilm for $4 billion back in 2012, things changed a little bit. A lot of the really stranger products that had been made over the years by either Lucasfilm or their partnership with all these other licensors kind of started to fade away as Disney really took a hold of the property and to make sure that they had a kind of clean, straightforward release of products. Now, every now and then we may see some weird toys or different types of decisions made in the licensing world of Star Wars that come up from time to time, but overall, the really super strange and unique items that have plagued us and kind of enjoyed our time with over the years has kind of gone to the wayside in the Disney era. But now looking back at the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace, it's so incredible to see the hype and the excitement for the return of Star Wars after there being no products and no movies for this really long time. We had 1983 with Return of the Jedi, we had some animated shows, we had some Ewok movies, we had some other things kind of mixed in, but really it wasn't until those products started coming back to the shelves in the mid-90s, getting ready for the special editions, leading up to the release of Phantom Menace in '99, that really started to bring Star Wars to where it is today. And I think that marketing push in the 90s, early 2000s, really solidified Star Wars' place in pop culture today. It's not just the original trilogy and the people who remember the toys and items from then. I really think that the late 90s, early 2000s period really put it there as something that will remain with us for forever when it comes to pop culture collectibles. Thank you so much for taking some time to go through with us and take a look at the history of Star Wars merchandise, a little bit about the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace, and talk about all things Star Wars. We really enjoyed the time we took to really put through this video. It took a lot of work, a lot of kind of pulling through a lot of items that we can share with you here on the video. If you enjoyed this type of video, let us know by liking it, subscribing to our channel, and hitting that bell notification to be notified when we post new content. Also, let us know in the comments below, what is your favorite Star Wars memory, whether it be collecting, watching the films, or really anything that's in between that. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep on collecting.